Hello, hello. Ooh, I got something on my pants. Isn't that gross? Let me clean my pants here. There we go. All right, the tournament continues. We all know the deal. Look at that big space behind me. Over there. The tournament continues. It continues indeed. Now, there's been some chatter. Because of the... So the way, I can tell you right now, an 89 figure is not going to win the tournament. An 88 figure is not going to win the tournament. You know, the prime of my figure playing was 85, 86, 87. So what I'm going to do is, we're going to run through the shelf positioning as it is now. Then for the second round, I'm going to flip it. So Snuka is not going to take on Hogan. Snuka's opponent is yet to be determined. Snuka's opponent is probably going to be an 89 figure. Okay? And it doesn't really matter because don't get this confused. This is not, we're not determining like my top 5 here. We're determining my favorite. So I don't care if my favorite ends up taking on, Rick Rude in the finals. My favorite is still going to win regardless. So the fact that Tito Santana is already out. Tito Santana is a top 5 figure. Top 6, top 7. Him being bounced in the first round is not indicative of his position in my life, in my fandom. So let's not get confused. When good figures are... Big John Studd was eliminated in the first round. Big John Studd is a top 8 figure for me. So don't get confused by figures leaving early. It's just the draw. It's just the way it goes. But I don't want some figures to go further than they deserve to. So I'm going to flip the second round is going to be basically like top seed versus, we're just going to flip it. So, I'll show you. You get it. You're smart people. All right, but continuing on with the current way I'm doing it. And some people have said, well, why aren't you doing managers? I'm going to do managers separately. I just am, because I want to also determine my favorite manager figure. And many of my managers had active wrestler roles in my federation. So just hang in there, for God's sake. It's my tournament, not yours. Thumbs down, but I don't see it anyway, so it's okay. All right, on the shelf. Here we go. There's another wonderful example of a good figure being eliminated early, because we have Corporal Kirchner versus SD Jones. Okay, so Kirchner we just talked about during the Kirchner tribute, so I won't spend a lot of time talking about him. You know the story. You know he got a ton of play time. He's a great pose. He's a great figure. I like the chunky, stocky legs. I like the Kirchner figure. And he was more a part of my federation than he probably should have been as just plain old mid-carder Corporal Kirchner. I've told that story a bajillion times. Corporal Kirchner is a great, great figure. SD Jones. Now... this would have been a no-brainer if I actually used him as Jobber SD Jones in my federation. First of all, best play pose of an LJN. Hands down, best play pose of an LJN. Absolutely perfect play pose. If I had just used him as SD Jones and did not have a creative bone in my childhood body, he'd have been eliminated quicker than George Steele because I never would have used him. Now, I did use SD as Jobber SD back in the day when a new guy would come in and he'd have to dominate somebody. There was only one figure that you could dominate and not feel bad about, and that's SD Jones. However, and again, you all know the story, SD Jones was pushed as Brickhouse Brown in my federation. He was part of that massive 6-man faction with Corporal Kirchner and with Don Morocco / Mike Rotunda. And for that reason, SD Jones got a ton of play. He's a great looking figure. He's got my favorite play pose, and he got a ton of play. And just more than the play, this figure is special because of how creative I was, right? So like these are the memories that remain, you know, or these are the memories that stick as a child. This is the fun part of childhood, when you create something like this and you remember it 35 years later, right? That the S.D. Jones figure was Brickhouse Brown and was pushed to the moon when I was a kid. So for that reason, S.D. Jones defeats Corporal Kirchner and moves on to the next round. I don't know why I never brought down a pen. I'm writing the list with a pink highlighter. S.D. Jones moves on. Next up. Now we're getting into a little deeper into the line. We've got Coco Beware versus Ted Arcidi. Well, I can tell you, Coco Beware was not a figure that I ever had as a kid. I got Coco in late 88 going into 89. There was a clearance sale at Toys R Us, and they had a bin of LJNs for $4.99. And I got I got Coco, I got Slick, I got the One Man Gang, Patera, and Billy Jack Haynes, and they were all in the $4.99 bin, right? And I was never, ever a fan of this figure. I mean, it looks good. You know, it's nice, colorful, detailed figure. The play pose is awful. I do not know what they were doing. Obviously, they needed a hand for Frankie to sit on. A great accessory, by the way. But it's kind of like an Adrian Adonis pose, right? It's a bad pose. This is a bad figure for play. And, you know, to me, Coco was more of a jobber, right? A great looking figure. And there's some early prototype figures with blue trunks, and that's an even better looking figure. But Coco's a good looking figure, horrendous play pose, and I never dug the character at all. But he's taking on Ted Arcidi, right? Ted Arcidi is one of the more questionable LJN figures. Why did Ted Arcidi get a figure? As you can tell, this is the cleanest figure I have. Cleanest, shiniest figure I have, because it never got played with, ever, even probably from the person I bought it off eBay from years and years and decades ago. However, this is a great LJN figure. Ted Arcidi's not a great anything in wrestling, but this figure is great. And I used Ted Arcidi later in play, 87, 88, I used him as Dr. Death Steve Williams. Okay? And he was a bad guy, and he was a tough bad guy. So I had some good Ted Arcidi versus Hulk Hogan matches, believe it or not, as Dr. Death. And for that reason, Ted Arcidi, in a surprise announcement, the Ted Arcidi figure is moving on to the second round because I used him and my imagination and created a different character. All right. Next up, Kamala against Hercules. Visually, I love this figure because if you remember Hercules' debut, he had a very intricate look. He had this outfit. He had like the gladiator leathery, he had this outfit. This was his outfit when he debuted. And he lost that pretty quickly. And I don't know what the decision was there. If it was like look, you want me to travel with this thing every night? Are you crazy? Let's just drop this gladiator leather thing. But I liked Hercules as Hercules. I didn't like him as a good guy. I didn't like him with power and glory. But I liked the bad guy gladiator Hercules. He had a great physique. An unfortunately steroided physique, but he was a good bad guy. And then later on in life, you learn what kind of a nice guy he is outside of the ring. And after his death, you hear a lot of you read a lot of posts about how nice he was and how much of a family man he was. I liked Hercules. I didn't care when he got sold to DiBiase and then turned good. That was like, all right, I'm kind of over that. Power and Glory I was never a fan of. But initially, bad guy Hercules I liked. And he was a good bad guy for the Federation, too. Not the best play pose, not the worst, but I used him. Not too much of a push and not too much of any kind of major role in my Federation. But I love the figure. I really do. I think it's a great figure. Kamala was one of the figures that I got from the wrestling ring, the ad from the magazines, and I got him at a fairly active time in play. I got him around late '87, and I loved this figure, and I loved it as a kid. I would. The open hand, right? So my move with Kamala was always not the reverse knife edge, but kind of like the uppercut chop, right, and to the throat, and he's got that hand. So I did a lot of that, and then the chops to the back, because if you watch a Kamala match, right, that's what it is. It's a lot of chops to the back. It's a lot of kicks, chop, and great figure, It's got a good amount of bulk for me. I think it's not a Bundy bulk figure. It's a Kamala, and I've always liked the Kamala figure, and I always use the Kamala figure, and so unfortunately I have to choose one, and we're putting Hercules aside, and Kamala is moving on in the tournament. Kamala. Moving on. I don't think I have any Kamala LJN stories, but other than he was used a lot. It's a great figure. This one I don't know. This one I'm going to decide while I'm talking to you. As I was pulling these off the shelves, I said, I don't know. I don't know. Well, Jake. So, sorry. My eye itches. Jake the Snake. Again, got him in '87. Play was still going. Play was not as strong as '86, but play was still happening. And I don't know. I love the snake, the rubbery, bendable snake. Always lost. Always lost. I mean, think back, guys. Why as kids did we lose these things? And where were they? Like, we only had one house. And I wasn't taking I wasn't taking Jake the Snake anywhere in '87. Why did we lose accessories as a kid? And where did they go? Right? Did they get thrown out? Like, where is my Daisy Dukes of Hazzard figure? Where? I haven't left the house. The figure hasn't left the house. Where is it? Did it get thrown out? Is it behind the wooden bookshelf that I'll never move? I don't know. How does stuff disappear? The snake always disappeared. We've talked about the figure size. It's small. It is a short figure in comparison. I mean, Jake was like 6'5", right? Or taller. This is a small figure. But it's a great bad guy. It's a great bad guy figure. And yes, I did include him in some play against Ricky Steamboat, against Tito Santana. I mean, Jake the Snake was used. He was played. It's just not the best. It's not the best figure. It's a great accessory. It's not the best figure. Cowboy Bob Orton is not a good-looking figure. I mean, play-wise, he's got an awful pose. Like, this I never understood, why the fist of Orton goes back. Why is this the play pose for Cowboy Bob Orton? I don't understand what the logic was there, right? And then we have the dreaded arm down. He's a really thin figure, width-wise. He is a very thin figure. That's all I can say. Great accessory, always lost, and decent look. I like the vest. I guess the green trunks I'm okay with. So to me, they're equal as far as appearance goes. But Cowboy Bob Orton, again, was a part of one of my most imaginative and lasting creations. One half of the most dominant tag team in LJN history, the Wild Desperados with Terry Funk. And again, even though he's an odd play pose, this was always a figure that you grab when you want to have Steamboat versus somebody, Tito against somebody, the Dog against somebody. If you want Hogan to just randomly defend his title, you grab Cowboy Bob Orton because he can get in a lot of offense and then he can lose. Much more dominant as a tag team participant in my childhood Fed. Tough decision appearance-wise, not a tough decision use-wise. History, importance in the history of the Federation, hands down, as I'm talking it through, it goes to Cowboy Bob Orton. So that is your 4. S.D. Jones, surprisingly Ted Arcidi, Kamala, and Bob Orton move on. Tomorrow's matchups, tonight if I feel like it, Billy Jack Haynes takes on Jumpin' Jim Brunzell. The other half of the Killer Bees, B. Brian Blair, takes on Bret Hart. Jim Neidhart goes against Adrian Adonis. And Ted DiBiase takes on the Honky Tonk Man. From there, we have probably two more rounds, or two more videos before we conclude round 1. And then, like I said, for round 2, we're going to flip the brackets, and Jimmy Snuka, who is the first winner of the first round, is going to take on the last winner of the first round. So Jimmy Snuka is going to take on a figure from 1989, and that's how we're going to do it. And that we'll just see how the third round goes. So that's that. We're getting there. We're almost down to the end of the first round, and then it's going to get exciting, and some good figures are going to drop out, and eventually we'll have one standing, my all-time favorite LJN. I have a name in my head. I think you guys do too. You've named off a few. I've heard Savage, I've heard Steamboat, I've heard Funk. I have a name in my head that I think could win, but a lot of the decisions are made during this brief conversation, so it could change. I don't know. But we will see. We will see indeed. My favorite LJN figure coming up. We'll see you again. Good night now.